Hello everybody and welcome to the next race review for the 2025 British Touring Car season. With me is my good friend Ben. Say hello.
Hello!
And today we're going to be covering the Knockhill series of races up in sunny Scotland. I would say rainy Scotland, but it was surprisingly warm. Now, as always, your continued support always means a lot to us. We do have our playlist down in the comments. And before this weekend kicked off, there was some massive news. And basically, we're going to quickly mention about this. And then obviously get into qualifying and stuff. So for those that are unaware, back on Saturday the 9th of August, and making sure I get my dates right here, Saturday the 9th of August, the owner of Power Mats Racing got a phone call to say that an establishment was on fire. And when he got there, the worst fears were true, which was his entire factory was on fire. I don't know if they've looked into it like that much, whether it was an electrical fire or something like that. But basically, the entire building was on fire. Everything got lost, including the race team, and there was a lot of support from the BTCC paddock. Obviously, with the Astras gone now, it means that Power Mats Racing needs to look around and find a way of getting up there. They were determined to get to Knockhill one way or the other, despite what had happened. And without a doubt, this is going to be, it already will be, the biggest story of this season. I've no doubt about that, and it shows how good the touring car family is. Ben has a few details, so Ben, what is it you can tell us?
Yeah, so I managed to they got the cars, they got the ex-Scott Sumpter one from last year off the person who had bought it. I don't know whether they bought it or whether they're borrowing it. They got that. I'm not sure where the other car came from, but they're both the Hyundais. So are they the Hyundais? No, they're the Seats, aren't they? They're the two Seat models. Yeah, they got both of them, which is good. And then, luckily, Toka themselves allowed them allowed them to use them cars, because technically they don't have the permits for them cars. I forget what the permit type's called. You know what you have to get at the start of the season. They also then allowed, them beforehand to run private tests on the track just to get some sort of setup, because obviously these are not the cars they've ran before, to get a baseline at least for the weekend. And let me tell you, it was amazing to see from the footage I managed to get hold of. The Napa boys in the background, you could hear the boys are back in town. They're playing different music relating to what was going on. Everybody on the pit lane who was about was clapping as the cars were doing laps, and it was an amazing, great thing to see from the sport of the Phoenix had sort of come out of the ashes and at least was carrying on in what capacity they can do. And I will say from this point, I've already looked, and they brought out merch to do with it. They brought out certain t-shirts have the flammable sign on the sort of have little punish things to do with it. And if you want to put money towards it, you'd go funding. There's a few other things out there, but the way I'm going to do it is buy one of them shirts, because at least then you've got something to remember it for, and you've got something to wear. So that's a majority of everything leading up to the weekend, and the rest of it you'll find out as we went along.
Yeah, so the two cars in question, which Ben mentioned, the ex-Scott Sumpter one from last year, that was given by the Patterson family that bought it. And then the other one came from Unlimited Motorsport, who stood down one of their Cupras, which was Stephen Jelly's from the last meeting at Croft. And they give them that one. I don't know how the whole cars thing works, but I know that they've got at least one car out of the two. Anyway, so that was the main feel-good story of the entire season so far, and like I said, big props to Power Mats Racing, the entire team, and all the British touring car family for coming together. We could make an entire video out of just talking about this, but obviously we wanted to get that out of the way because of the fact that is the most important thing. Thankfully, nobody was hurt in the fire. I think just the case of, to be honest, Power Mats Racing's wallet, but obviously they bounced back from this. And long may they continue in BTCC and carry on. racing on through all of what's happened, basically. Yeah, props to everybody for doing what they've done and pulling together. Moving to qualifying, though. To move into the first group, we had Lloyd, Dorlin, Chilton, Patterson and Halstead. They were the drivers to get knocked out in Group 1. Group 2 saw Morgan, Mikey Doble, Shedden, Buxton and Hamilton. In Part 2, we saw Camish, Moffat, Taylor Smith, Smiley, Sutton and Osborne go from the pack. And the Fast 6 shootout was going to be an interesting one to see who it was that was going to get it. And surprisingly, the BMWs came out fighting big time. With Charles Rainford securing his maiden BTCC pole position. He just eked out his teammates DeLeon and Hill for second and third. Charles Rainford did a 50-second.673 with DeLeon 13 thousandths of a second behind and Hill just short of 2 tenths back. Dan Rowbottom was thrown out due to the car being underweight, which meant that he started at the back of the grid for race 1. Moving into race 1 though, we had a great start by all the BMWs with Moffat jumping up 2 places straight away. Got by Ingram for 4th at the end of lap 3. Lap 5 saw a 3-way battle between Osborne, Morgan and Smiley, with Osborne being pushed back to 12th place. By lap 6 we saw Rowbottom was already up to 13th place and well in the points. Lap 8 saw DeLeon go off and somehow take the lead with Rainford. From Rainford, should I say. However, 2 laps later, we saw DeLeon get overtaken by Rainford, Hill and Proctor, which dropped him down to 4th place. This was mainly down to the fact that he picked up some grass in his radiator and the car started to overheat. Sutton was embroiled in a battle between himself, Taylor Smith and Osborne, and before long, this became a train behind Sutton for 8th place. Hill and Rainford went into a small battle that saw Hill come out ahead and took himself into the lead. Further back, we saw Osborne and Taylor Smith collide, but this ended with Morgan getting past Osborne for 10th place. Half of the pack was backed up behind the Toyota, behind Aaron Taylor Smith during this race. Lap 21, we saw Halstead get spun round by Hill, who was lapping him. The car got stuck, and out came the safety car. Once it went back in, everyone got stuck in. And who else but Sutton would be the one to try and capitalise. Up at the front, it was Hill who came through to win on his return, with Rainford and Ingram rounding out the podium as Ingram took Proctor over the line due to team orders. Chilton was later thrown out for overboosting. Honestly, never heard of this one before, but it was apparently due to an engine map which didn't prevent the overboosting with the engine. So your race 1 results were as follows. Jake Hill was your race winner, with Charles Rainford in 2nd with the fastest lap. Ingram was 3rd ahead of Proctor, Camish, Moffat, Sutton, DeLeon, Taylor Smith and Osborne to round out the top 10. Over to you for race 2, Ben.
Yeah, so for race 2, it was a nice, interesting race. Both BMWs got a really good start. Ingram sort of wasn't far behind them. Hill was in the lead and Ingram was really up there in 3rd. Keeping with him, there was a nice little gap behind him. And then after that, into lap 2, Ingram was like, I've had enough of this, and he just stuck it and behind Hill and was just waiting to pounce at this point. And Rainford, from this point in the race, his race and the tyres have started to sort of collide. It wasn't the right thing for that car. Lap 3, Ingram decided he was going for his move finally, and he sent it straight up at Clark's. Stayed alongside Hill for pretty much all of the rest of the lap, up until the point he turned around the final corner onto the start-finish straight, and he took him there. Onto lap 4, Camish at this point was now up to 3rd by the end of the lap, and he was sort of in a nice comfortable position there. Lap 5, Shedden was sideways, really sideways drifting. He managed to get a hold of it, went slightly wide, hit a bit of the gravel, but he managed to keep his place, which was impressive. I think everybody saw him going sideways, sort of backed off a little bit, and he gave him just enough to not lose anything. Lap 8, Morgan at this point just went for it. He got past Taylor Smith, but he was bouncing as he did. It was quite interesting to see. The car was really on edge. Later around the lap, Osborne decided to come off the track. He managed to get back on, but then not long after that, he went into the pits at the end of the lap because of the grass getting in his car. And as we said, for a weird Knockhill weekend, it was warm, so his car would have overheated if he hadn't. lap 12. Massive gap at this point from Ingram to Hill. By the end of the lap, Camish sent it past Hill. Not long after that, Hill went wide and he lost even more. So at this point, Hill was into third and he was just further and further back from Ingram. Going into lap 13 at this point, he just lost more places down to fifth, with Sutton getting in lap 15. Sutton has a good fight with Proctor, and it was quite interesting. He tried to send it past him a few times with a little couple of, hey, I'm going to have you here and so. Eventually managed to do it, and he got up to third place. On the last lap, Ingram, with a huge lead of 5 seconds, easily gets the win. Camish was in second at this point, but on the last corner, he let Sutton pass, so Sutton could take second and he could take third. So, your rundown for this race. First was Ingram with the fastest lap. Second was Sutton. Third was Camish. Fourth was Proctor. Fifth was Hill. Sixth was De Leon. Seventh was Moffat. Eighth was Chilton. Ninth was Rowbottom. And 10th was Morgan. Over to you for race 3, Brad.
Thanks, Ben. The race 3 saw De Leon get put on pole position, and it saw Hill start alongside him down in second place. So it was all eyes on whether a BMW could lead from a BMW at the start. And we saw a good start with De Leon, with Camish getting ahead of Proctor, which left Sutton to pass him. However, Proctor wasn't going to just let him pass like that. Lap 2 saw De Leon with Hill fight for the lead, with Hill getting ahead. However, it wasn't done yet as Camish passed De Leon not long after. De Leon dropped down to 4th place as Proctor got past him. Sutton was the cork in the bottle, with Ingram and Chilton trying to find a way past him. Lap 10 saw Moffat go against Rowbottom, and it was Moffat who lost out and dropped down to 8th place. He then went against Morgan 1 lap later, which caused his rear bumper to come off. Moffat did eventually gain the place on Morgan. Lap 12 saw Ingram and Sutton clatter into each other as they fought hard for position. Buxton looked to be out with a problem. Lap 15 saw Robo get past Chilton, meaning Ingram had lost his rear gunner. 1 lap later, it saw Chilton get back past Robo. You can see where this is going. Lap 17, we saw Sutton get past Proctor for third, with Ingram following swiftly after. Robo and Chilton got past De Leon, then Proctor was passed by Rowbottom and Chilton. Lap 21 saw the Chilton versus Robo fight take another turn as they were still fighting. Kept passing each other to and from. Lap 23 saw Morgan and Moffat fighting for 8th place, with Morgan coming out on top. Up at the front though, it was Jake Hill who took his second win of the day, with Sutton and Camish rounding out the podium. This was because of the fact that Napa team orders came into play, and as a result, across the line, Sutton came across in second with Camish third. However, De Leon was out with an engine problem on the last lap, which brought out the yellow flags, and a couple of hours later, these rules got reversed, which meant it was Camish who finished ahead of Sutton. So your race 3 results were Jake Hill was your race winner, ahead of Dan Camish, who was second with the fastest lap. Sutton was third, ahead of Ingram, Chilton, Rowbottom, Morgan, Rainford, Moffat and Shedden to round out the top 10. Was it due to the Drivers' Championship? Well, not a whole lot. There's still nothing between Ingram and Sutton. Sutton breathing down Ingram's neck for the championship lead. Camish is now ahead of Rowbottom for third place in the championship, 14 points ahead. Hill's quite firmly in 5th place, but he's not far off the 2 Dans for third place. Then we see Adam Morgan ahead of Tom Chilton by only 1 point. Charles Rainford is up to 8th. Senna Proctor, surprisingly, is up to 9th. He's joint 9th place with Chris Smiley, who's in 10th. Both on 116 points. He's not done too bad for only a couple of races in the Hyundai. So, Ben, who are your winners from the race weekend? I think there's only one.
Yeah, there's only one, but it's also a group. Power Max Racing, and the group bit is everyone who helped them get there to this weekend, including Toka for allowing them the bits what they allowed them to help make the process a bit easier to be done.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I can't disagree on that.
I couldn't pick anyone else because no.
I mean, if I was to go with anybody, obviously it's Power Max Racing. I will actually mention as well, Mikey Doble did come 15th on the last race, so he did actually score a point, which was really good given the car that They're not used to that car. They've not developed the car the way they want it, and it was literally given to them at the very last minute. Granted, a couple of days beforehand, but you get the idea. And I think it did show that their determination did pay off. Surprisingly, for me, if I was to go without Powermax Racing to exclude them from that, I think obviously Jake Hill, he was off ill at Croft, had his infection, I think it was, that he had. So to come back and win 2 out of 3 races is pretty good for Jake. I think that'll really give him some confidence. And despite Ingram winning race 2 and not really... He was up there still against Sutton. I think even Sutton put it bluntly, which was, we're really going to have to pull something out to beat Ingram this year because that car is a rocket ship. And I think that in terms of development, I think that the Ford just isn't cut out against the Hyundai, especially in the straight, which is where Sutton reckons Silverstone they're going to suffer. Now, we're going to Donington Park next. We're going to the Grand Prix circuit. And this was a place that Sutton didn't do so great at the second part of the year, last year. Now, Ingram did very well. Will it be a case of Ingram doing just as well as he did 12 months ago, or will it be a case of Sutton finally being able to get one over on Ingram to take the championship lead? Let's not forget, all it's going to take is one bad race for Ingram for Sutton, it to go Sutton's way. I mean, granted, if they're both out, then nobody wins either. But in terms of the championship, I think it's now Ingram's firmly to lose. I think that Napa is definitely struggling now, little by little. And I think the team's championship's relatively close, but BMW resurgence, I mean, who knows? Maybe they could do well at Donington. We'll see. But I remember last year that BMWs were quick at Brands Hatch, so anything can happen. But on that note, I think we'll wrap this one up here. And just want to quickly say, as we normally do, at the end of the day, that these videos, we do these videos to obviously cover the races. The races themselves are on YouTube, so if you haven't caught the races themselves, you can catch them. ITV Sport are doing a cracking job at uploading the full races as well as the individual ones too. So if you want to catch just individual races, you can do so there. But yeah, mega job from Powermax Racing. I think, like I said, I know we've talked about them a lot during this video, but they thoroughly deserve it. And I think the BTCC family can well and truly give themselves a pat on the back for that. Wouldn't you agree, Ben?
Yeah, 100%. It showed the power of the sport, and like a lot of people have I've seen on comments on Facebook, if this had been F1, the other teams would have gone, yeah, well, we're not helping you. You don't need to come on the grid, and it would have just been, that's it, that team's out now. So it's brilliant to see what sort of has happened and to show how the sports come together as a whole, really. It's been great to see, and I hope it carries on so we can see them more in the future.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And with that being said, we're going to wrap our video up here. Let us know what you thought of the racing over at Knockhill. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let us know in the comments as per usual. We'll see you, though, in 2 weeks' time, like I said, where we'll be going back to Donington Park, this time for the Grand Prix circuit. And we'll see what happens with the title fight. See whether it's Ingram or Sutton that ends up leading. I think Ingram, but we'll see. Until then, thank you very much for watching. Have a good day, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Until then, ta-ra.
Bye.